Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We are going to start our third session today uh, on the theme community development amidst COVID-19 and beyond. This session is handled by Doris Patmini Selvaratnam. She is an associate professor and community development expert at the Faculty of Economics and Management at University of Cabannes, Malaysia. She is currently heading industry community liaison officer in the university. So, uh, I welcome Doris Patmani to this session. Ma'am, please.
Thank you. Okay. So my topic is community development amidst COVID-19 and beyond. So I'm going to give a little bit of definition and the impact of COVID and on poverty and the new norms, and also some gender perspectives in Malaysia. So development, if you are especially in this area, you would know that it has been widely discussed, starting from Adam Smith, development as an inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations and their rise. And then Karl Marx noted development in terms of fair share of national income for all, including workers, while Todaro brought it to a more wider perspective, including life sustenance, freedom of choice, and self-esteem. United Nations later used the term equality, sustainability, productivity, and employment. So this is more towards grassroots and also the community aspect that comes in. So now we are looking at not just economic growth, but we are also looking at economic development, and we are going to go into community development specifically. If economic growth, it is more measurable, looking at numbers, income per capita, GDP. If it is economic development, the scope is much more broader, and it is more comprehensive with elements like social welfare, early childhood education, human rights, and criminal justice reform. Community development is also comprehensive, but it is starting at a grassroots level. Grassroots level meaning community itself, the family, the individual, as a community, how can they move or take action as a collective group to mitigate any problems that are arising in their midst. Okay, for economic development, since the 50s and 60s, linear stages of growth model was developed into theories and patterns of structural changes in how the modes of development is conducted. And this developed further in the 70s to include the international dependence revolution, the periphery and the nation state. And this moved on to neoclassical free market counter revolution in the 80s and 90s. And finally, institutional approach in the 1990s onwards until now. Factors of economic development include per capita income, factor productivity, standard of living, physical quality of life index, and human development index. So as you can see, these are all still very much measurable, and it can be done quite easily. Now with the inclusion of sustainable development goals, there are 17 elements to be looked at, and number one is no poverty, and gender equality is number 5, as you can see in the icons here. And within this framework, it is comprehensive in the sense that it is very inclusive. And the aim is so that nobody gets to be left behind. And it is something that is sustainable, long-term measure that is moving towards many, many years to come. In terms of community development theories, it is one, macroeconomic theories of structural functionalism. What are the functions of each person in the community, for example? Conflict theory as in how can the capacity be built in the community, not just realizing the differences that one has, which may bring about conflicts, but how to find a meeting ground or how to mitigate any differences that arises. And the third is symbolic interactions that is associated with solidarity building. So how can we bring about harmony? Harmony in the community is important if we are looking for community development. So community development cannot be successful if there is no cohesion. Social cohesion is very important. People need to come together, and we cannot see differences that bring about friction. Differences, whether it is differences due to cultural differences, due to gender differences, no matter what the differences is, we need to find some common grounds so that we can move forward in that community. We may have different needs, but we need to find ways of coming together to achieve those needs. Okay. Community development is a holistic approach grounded in principles of empowerment, human rights, inclusion, social justice, self-determination, and collective action as noted by Kenny in 2007. Okay, community development also considers community members to be experts in their lives and communities and values community knowledge and wisdom. My beliefs might be different, yours might be different. Community A's beliefs might be different, community B's beliefs might be different. But if we are living in one country, then we might have an umbrella vision. We might have an umbrella mission, and we will have to have an umbrella agenda, strategies that might move us towards one common goal. Differences, we have to look at those differences carefully, but at the same time, we need to ensure that these differences does not bring conflict and fight. Because if there is conflict and fight, that means there will be losses, whether it's loss of time, loss of power, subordination, um, one overpowering another, etc. Okay, so what are the indicators of community development? Okay, it includes community resilience to especially upholding traditional values, community participation, the level of participation in decision making to move forward in achieving common goals, capacity building, how many are empowered to bring about those changes, and this involves skills and training, quality of life, changes that involves bringing positive changes in education, health, and other aspects of the quality of life, social and economic well-being, and the um, MPLI, which is multidimensional poverty line index. So if we are looking at community development, we need to look at the grassroots, and at the same time, it needs to be holistic. Just because it is grassroots, we cannot dismiss it as just being a micro perspective, because every single micro perspective, it is collected together, it becomes a macro perspective. So in this MPLI, it takes into consideration social and economic well-being as a whole. So how is a person doing socially? How is a person doing economically? Also in other aspects of well-being, like mental well-being, psychological well-being, physiological well-being. All these are important considerations that has to be taken into the limelight in community development. Okay, COVID-19. I think this needs no introduction. I will just skip this slide. But what it has caused is a major disruption in our daily life. It has caused lockdowns in many countries. Some countries are not doing lockdowns, but still there are measures to control the movement. And this has caused financial stress, not just in the macro aspect of the government's health, financial health, but at the same time, it is also having impact on the micro level, at the grassroots, families. Why this is so? Because there is a need to control. And when you do a national level control, as in not just 3 C's and 3 W's, but you also shut down economic activities that have been shut down, which has created risk and uncertainty. Risk and uncertainty in business. People do not know how to adhere to standard operating procedures, whereby they need to wear masks, they need to use hand sanitizers all the time, they need to maintain social and physical distance. And the only thing that is so fluid is the liquidity. And this is especially so online. Workforce, in terms of workforce, now there is a re-engineering of people to work from home. And this is not easily manipulated in the short term. In the long term, it is easily done. Even the education system, many education systems in the world were not prepared, but developed countries and some developing countries, and in this example, even in Malaysia, we have been prepared with the online education system. Hence, it was not too difficult, but it has to be acknowledged that some marginalized communities have been not able to access the online materials. Supply and demand shock that has been created in the economy has resulted in loss of jobs, lack of supply of certain items, and also the need for new policy and legislations, not just to monitor the SOPs, but also to maintain economic order. So coming to the gender equality position. In Malaysia, the employers are not helping women to balance work and care responsibilities was seen as the most important factor in stopping women from achieving equality with men, followed by too few women in positions of political power and the government not playing its role in promoting equality. So this was quoted by a report in the New Straits Times newspaper, local newspaper. So there is also another quote, which also comes to the same point: difficulties of juggling family responsibilities with paid work. Yes. And traditional attitudes towards women, limited access to finances, inadequate parental leave policies, and inadequate skills for the modern labor market. So all these challenges becomes very much heightened amidst COVID and beyond. Due to COVID-19, in Malaysia, the online platform has become very heightened. Many people are not going to work 100%. They are not working 9 to 5. They are not working 8 to 4. But maybe they are working only half day. Some are not even working anymore. So they have to find alternative means of self-employment. And because many are being pushed into poverty, not just in Malaysia, but also in other parts of the world, this has created a stress to the daily wage earners, most highly, bottom 40 of the community, the marginalized poor at the rural and urban areas, with people being laid off and people forced to take pay cuts. So when this happens, they have to create their own job. So what this has created is one, a negative impact, and two, a positive impact. Immediately, there is issue of food insecurity, social insecurity, and also economic insecurity. It does not matter whether you are male or female, it is felt by everyone in the community. The positive impact is there is digital connectivity. Digital infrastructure is very good in Malaysia, but there is still about 15 to 20% with problems of digital infrastructure connectivity. Social and economic awareness, policies are being directed, very targeted, to help those who really need the assistance. There is also health awareness, emergency responses. All this is not specifically gender biased because the government and also the community realize that this is needed by everyone. And also in terms of demand for new skills, this new skills is needed not just for the male workforce, it is also needed by the female workforce. Are you able to catch up to the new technology? Are you able to catch up to the new skills? What are the new opportunities that are being present? Many of the new opportunities that have taken up are in the food industry, whether it is fast food, meals on the go, and whether it is male or female, they are using this skill to maximize their daily income. Now, other occupations like project management, healthcare technologies, and so on, these are additional activities or new skills. But nevertheless, these are all needed. And in Malaysia, due to the awareness of gender equality and also issues of gender inequalities, everybody is seeking new skills. Everybody is seeking new opportunities. In fact, a lot of policies that has been introduced, help, subsidies, provisions that are being given, it is not targeted for specifically to a gender, but it is open to anybody who needs that. If you are head of the household, whether you're a male head of the household or female head of the household, you are entitled to that assistance or the funding. And if you are opening up a social entrepreneurship, if you are opening up a small business, loans are also available regardless of your gender. What is important is you are able to show that you can do your business. What is your plan? What is the projection for the next few months? What are the risks involved? And if you are able to produce this, then you can proceed. Despite this gender equality that is already present in terms of policy and regulation, in the informal sector or in the community at large, there is still patriarchal leniency whereby the head is always the male. Decision making is mostly on the hands of the male. But there is a growing pattern whereby the women takes the lead in making decision. There are more women taking role in heads of organizations. Even in political arena, more women are participating, but still the number is still not high. But in terms of labor participation, today the women's participation in labor, female labor participation rate is very high. It is almost 50%, almost equal, male and female. But there is always room for improvement. In terms of healthcare, equality in terms of gender is also available in Malaysia. The prevalence in terms of inequality is more towards whether you are in rural or urban location. Because if you are in rural location, healthcare facilities might be not as good as in the urban setting. Even education system, it is equal for male and female. In fact, in Malaysia, you can see that the education system is dominated by female, whether as the educators or as the students. There is more female compared to male. The crux of the issue is whether you are in the rural or urban area. In urban area, accessibility is very much higher compared to the other areas. Okay, what is needed is flexibility, creativity, innovation, critical thinking, entrepreneurial resilience, cultural diversity management, and emotional EQ. I forgot what is EQ. data literacy. Are you able to interpret the data? Digital coding and skills, project management skills. So if you are able to do it, if you can manipulate any of these skills, you can move forward in the workforce. It does not matter whether you are male or female. What is important is you can deliver the skills, your performance index. Okay. So although COVID-19 has created chaos, whether it is global or in local area, but this disruption in the social or the economy has also increased the number of poor and the hardcore poor, but it has also created ample of opportunities. Now it is up to the individuals whether they are creative or have the potential to create awareness and increased benefit for themselves. So emergency response team is important in the midst of COVID-19. At the same time, gender sensitivity is also important because in terms of emergency response, majority of the workers are female. So that means if majority of the female are going to be down, this will have a long-term implication for the community. Enhance resilience and sustainability in business and community. Strengthen basic amenities and digital infrastructure and facilitate social solidarity economy. So as a bottom line, I would like to conclude that gender equality is much higher in Malaysia compared to other developing countries, but there is still room for improvement. Okay, thank you. Now I'd like to open for any questions.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, there is one. Amar Raj is asking, do you think the mentality of every calamity being an opportunity would create world that would lead towards a need for calamities?
Of course, every crisis, every calamity will pose opportunities, will instigate one to be more creative, and it is up to individual or as a group in the community to work towards this new innovativeness. So it is up to the individual whether that person is able to take up these opportunities presented by the calamities.
Yeah, I have one more query is that in the while defining calamity, you explained that the people are in a community, people are respected to follow some rules, values, and everything of the community. But is it possible in that at the time of a pandemic or disaster, do you think that if people will work together as a machines, like in a uniform pattern?
Okay, during a calamity, there will definitely be a push and pull of identity as well. If the calamity is too huge, as right now what we are experiencing, in Malaysia, it has proven that people do not look at the culture, the identity of individual, but merely people are looking at individuals as an individual. Whether you are poor, you have no access to food, then you need to be given assistance. Nobody is looking at, oh, if you are Indian, if you are a non-Indian, if you are a Chinese or non-Chinese, only then I will help you. They do not look at that. Or if you are a Christian, you are a Buddhist or a Muslim, only then I will help you. No. So long as you are poor, if you have no access because of the calamity that was raised by COVID-19, everybody is given assistance.
Yes, another question is we would like to know whether the government in Malaysia has taken any initiative to provide skill development and technological know-how to its workforce to face the challenges posed by the pandemic.
Yes, thank you for the question. Definitely. Malaysia, through the Human Resource Development Fund, HRDF, has given allocation of 2 it's about millions. Actually, I do have a data of the set of policies. I should make it available to the secretariat. And since this workshop is 2 days workshop, I hope the secretariat will help me to share it with everyone tomorrow. I will not be able to share it immediately, but yes, there has been billions allocated in various aspects. One is if employers are not able to take the staff to maintain the staff, they say they will have to let go of the staff. So what the government has done is I will pay 50% of your salary and the company pay 50% balance, so they can retain the employees. That is one. Number two, in terms of training, through the HRDF fund, people have been given the opportunity to be retrained, especially in the digital platform, to have technical skills, technical know-how, so that they can do trade online. They can also be part of the fintech right now, financial technology, and they can do trading as well. They can do e-commerce, various aspects. And hopefully in the long run, the government is hoping that people will be moving towards the fourth industrial revolution.
Yes, Madam, the thing is that now we are going to online in everything, in education, in work, whatever it may be. We are thinking about an online world. The basic issue is that this online things gives greater pressure to the people, especially mental pressure to the people, especially to the school children, because they are not facing a society, they are not mingling with their peers. It is giving them very huge pressure. So how this can be overcome?
Okay, definitely online teaching is a big challenge, and we have done various studies on this aspect. One is the preschool level, primary school, secondary school, and tertiary level. So there are different levels of education. So the online system is made available firstly through the televisions for the preschoolers, and also for some of the primary schools. So television programs, certain channels are dedicated for education. And besides that, the online platform is also made available so that they can access the education materials. The teachers will also come online according to the designated schedule and give the classes. But I must acknowledge that this is not accessible to all the children throughout Malaysia. There are certain rural areas or certain urban areas the children are not able to access. They're not able to access. One is because the digital infrastructure is not fully available throughout Malaysia. Number two, maybe the data package is not available. So if the digital infrastructure is already there, but if the community is very poor, they might not be able to have data packages. In fact, some of the local telcos have taken it upon themselves to give 1 gigabyte, for example, for one whole day. And then for the following gigabytes, you have to pay. So these small initiatives will help certain groups to be able to access the online education system. In fact, in the education system, it is also advised that the materials are made online so that the children can watch it over and over and over again. But the online interaction time itself is limited so that it will not be a burden to the client. There is also the problem of in one family, if the parents have 5 children, all are schooling, all in different classes, all the classes are running simultaneously, and they have only one device. So who is going to be using that one device? So all the other children will have to close their mouth, close their eyes, and just sit and probably read the books on their own. They won't be able to access. The teacher will be putting X not present for the online class. So there is a lot of challenge, yes. And this is something that can only be overcome if The online system is made 24/7 and children can access whenever they want.
Yeah, I hope there is no further question. So we can conclude this session. I would like to thank Doris Lakmini for accepting our invitation and participate in this webinar. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.